Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 7.13 gameplay update patch video, whatever you want to call it. This is actually a super short video. This came out a couple hours ago, so let's take a look at what we got today. It is Thursday after all. Before we get started, I do have to say a couple things. This is going to be a complaint and then a compliment, I guess. And I'm going to sound very hypocritical. I hate, and this won't make sense until the very end of the patch, but things that change the base level of the game, it's getting to the point where it's just becoming too much for my head to handle. Because I kind of brought this up in the last patch video where things are changed so often, it's very hard to keep up. And this is kind of the problem with Dota, I feel, especially for the newer players. And again, like I said, I've been playing for how long now? Double-digit years, if you count Dota 1. And when base level stuff is changed on a semi-consistent basis, it becomes very confusing. Having said that, I do like this patch and the changes that were made. So that does sound hypocritical, I know. I just felt the need to say that for whatever reason. So let's get started. So first things first, the most important part of the patch, Aegis now has an alt tooltip that explains how to pronounce the item, which it is Aegis, by the way. Of course, there's a lot of... So let's talk about this for a bit. This might be a bit of a rant, but the actual pronunciation of the word Aegis, because it's a real word, is Aegis. Okay, it's Aegis. I never pronounce it that way. I've always said it Aegis. It just sounds better. I'm one of those guys where if it's a weird word, if there's a specific way that I like to pronounce it, I'm just going to usually stick with it. But the funny story is, back in the day, I believe BTS was casting some tournament, and they kept saying Aegis for whatever reason. They just started, and because they had changed, they used to say Aegis all the time, so they started saying Aegis because they found out that's the way you pronounce it. And Ice Frog himself messaged somebody from BTS saying, "Don't pronounce it that way." At least that's the story that's been told to me. So what this gives us, this is a big precedent being set, though, because again, I've always pronounced it that way, and I don't care that that's how it's pronounced. That's great. But it also gives credence to, or gives me validation that I can pronounce things incorrectly because they sound better, right? So Abaddon. It is Abaddon, and I understand that's how you say it. It doesn't sound good to me, so I'm going to say Abaddon. Things like that. Eon Disc. I actually say Eon Disc correctly. Aether Lens, I think, is Ether Lens, but I don't like how that sounds. So again, it is what it is. It's hilarious. Pronounce it however you like. Who cares, honestly? All right, and the actual changes of the patch. Tier 1 tower team bounty reduced from 120 to 100. The Tier 2 tower bounty reduced from 200 to 120. Tier 3 from 200 to 140. Tier 4, 200 to 160. Range barracks team bounty reduced from 150 to 100. And filler buildings gold bounty from 125 to 75. So essentially, this just means a lot less gold for killing buildings. I want to say, when you push buildings, when you get these racks down, obviously you get a huge advantage because you get I guess they're called super creeps before they become mega creeps. But this makes it less of a snowball effect, so there's a little bit more comeback mechanic, I guess. And if you have a lineup that's catered to pushing early towers in the first 10, 15 minutes, especially if it's huge discrepancy between the team you're playing, it's going to be less of a difference overall. I think that's a good change. Range creep average bounty reduced from 57 to 54. Whatever. Glyph duration increased from 5 to 6. So high ground, again, pushing is becoming harder. Melee barracks HP increased by 300. Same thing we're seeing. The Shrine HP increase of 1500 to 1750. And the shrines now have 5 HP regens. So perhaps defending those shrines after you lose a tier 3 is something you want to think about. So I think this is... so pushing high ground is basically just more difficult. And it's less rewarding because of the lack of gold and whatnot. So we'll see how this actually ends up shaping up in terms of the gameplay, whether it's pros or pubs. But the one thing I don't want is the high ground defense that never ends. That was one of the worst times I've ever had in Dota. But I think these changes are small enough that's not going to be super drastic. Of course, a big part of the high ground defense that I'm talking about that was really annoying because they had 5 shrines in the freaking base. It was impossible to push, which is obviously not the case anymore. Rescaled level 20 or 12 to 25 respawn time curve to be slightly less early and the same later on. So as you can see here, the numbers, not going to go through all of them. So again, one of those changes. It's hard to visualize. Probably won't really even feel a difference, but obviously they felt the need to do something. All right. Now we get to the part of the patch where I kind of complained about and then complimented at the same time. So we have removed hero class specific perks. The bonuses now affect all classes. Okay. What does that mean exactly? Well, let's keep reading. So first, removed status resistance as strength-based attribute bonus. So status resistance, of course, as you guys know, would lower the time of stuns and other kind of disables if you were a strength hero only. Now they've just gotten rid of that mechanic as something that you can just gain from strength and for strength heroes only. It's not part of that anymore. So the only way to get status resistance is with Eon Disc, which I believe gives 25%, top of my head, or if you're Tiny, who just gets it via his grow. So what does this mean exactly? Why would they get rid of that? Well, again, let's keep reading and we'll find out what they replaced it with. But one thing to keep note of, I think that means they're going to be adding maybe more items or more heroes that have status resistance, because it's weird to have literally 2 things in the game. Maybe I'm missing something. You guys can tell me in the comments, but I think literally 2 things in the game with status resistance. Okay, so rebalanced how strength, int, and agi bonuses below. They still provide +1 bonus damage to primary attribute holders, okay? And the primary attribute now provides 25% more benefit to the bonuses it provides. Okay, so let's go over the specifics. So let's talk about strength first. So the old strength was 20 health, has now become 18 health, but that was always the case for everyone. So it's a slight nerf to all heroes except for strength, who now get 25% more. So with each, strength is 22.5 health. The old HP regen was 0.71% of HP. Now it's 0.55%, so pretty significant nerf. Except for strength heroes, it's just a slight nerf at 0.68%, so only a 0.03 difference. And then, of course, as we talked about, status resistance for strength heroes is gone. Completely gone. And it's been replaced with magic resistance. So you get, for each strength to any hero, you get 0.08% magic resist. And then for strength heroes, you get 0.1%. So if you're a strength hero, pretty beefy, you get a lot of strength. If you get, let's say, 10 strength, you get 1% extra magic resist. Not that much, but for certain heroes, it does make a difference. And I kind of want to test it out in a second here. We'll do that last. So for intelligence, the old intelligence gave you 12 mana. Now it still gives 12 mana, except for int heroes, it now gives 15. So a little bit of buff there for int heroes. The old intelligence used to give 2% mana regen. Now it gives 1.8% mana regen. And for int heroes, 2.25. So a slight buff. And of course, as you might have noticed, magic resistance is for the strength heroes now. So they've completely gotten rid of that and replaced it with the spell amp. So for any hero that gets intelligence, for each intelligence is 0.07% spell amp. And for int heroes, it's 0.087%. Wowee. And then last but not least, for agility, for each agility you get, the old one was 0.17 armor. Now it's 0.16 armor. And for int heroes is 0.20. And then the 1 attack speed has stayed the same, except for int heroes, it is now 1.25. So slight buff as well. And then last but not least, everybody's going to improve their move speed just a tad by getting agility. It's not just agility heroes anymore. Instead of 0.06% movement speed, it's 0.05, except for agi heroes, which is 0.062%. So I kind of want to just test kind of a ridiculous, let's see, let's get Centaur and let's demo him. I'm more interested in the move speed and magic resist. I don't know about you guys. So typically you spawn him level 1. He should have 25% magic resistance on the old patch. So it now becomes 26% magic resistance. Of course, that's just based off of his starting strength, which is 23. So if we max him to full, I don't know how much strength he's going to get, but goes from 26 to 34% magic resist. So you're gaining 9 just by existing in the world. Over the last patch, that is. And of course, you can. This is not additive, but you'll probably still go for the 10% magic resist. So we're going from 34 to 41%. Usually I go double edge damage, but I just want to see the difference. This should only change by like 1%. So magic resist is 41. You gain 20 strength. It's only 42. So by getting, like, I bet if I get a heart, it's not going to increase it by that much either. So we're at 42, right? %3 magic resist difference by getting a heart. So not a big deal. Of course, it does add up over time. Now, if I get an actual hood, which is a very common item. Oh, let's see what it was at before. I can't remember. So 42 to 56. So instead of having massive status resistance on strength heroes such as Centaur, you'll be getting a decent amount more magic resist instead. So I think that's a cool change. In terms of movement speed, it's not just agility heroes anymore. So I'm at 397 movement speed. Let's get a butterfly. Not that I would ever get this. Becomes 404. I bet S and Y is even better now. You don't only just get agility, but you get the percentage increase of movement speed. 397 to 46. Damn, that's, look how fast he is. Just S and Y and Tranquil. So that's pretty good. So I don't know. Again, I'm a tad annoyed because things are just changed so often. It's extremely difficult to keep up with. But it is a double-edged sword. Heh, because it does keep the game fresh. And again, I do like these changes, so I can't really complain, even though I am. So I guess that's it. Is there anything else that I wanted to test out? Let's see. I mean, the spell amp is kind of whatever, right? So yeah, let us know what you think of these changes in the comments below. I think I'm more interested in two things. First, the status resistance, if you guys are going to miss it. And if you also agree with me that it's going to be added to maybe other items or to new heroes coming in. And then number two, of course, the pronunciation of Aegis. Does anybody actually pronounce that wrong? I don't know. I've heard anybody pronounce that wrong in a long time. But let us know in the comments. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching. And we'll see you later.